Hi, my name is Debebe. I studied journalism at UTSC with a minor in studio, and I now work as an anchor and reporter for CP24. I mean, my journey started here in Scarborough. Born and raised in Scarborough, always knew that UTSC was probably going to be the school of choice for me. Journalism has always been a passion of mine. I've always wanted to help others. I love writing, I love talking to people, meeting people, and UTSC is the only campus that offers the journalism program, so it was a great pick for me. I've also always loved art. I might not be the best at it, but it's something I'm very passionate about as well. So I did my minor in studio. And a lot of people don't know is that studio is actually quite a diverse program. You know, it's not just the painting, it's not just the sculpture work. You can also do digital art. I personally focused a lot of my studies on the photography side, the video side, and kind of manipulating those pieces of media into art that works for me, which is absolutely amazing. And also helped me a lot in my journalism journey as well, you know. Nowadays, you know, you can't just be an anchor, you can't just be a writer, you have to be a jack of all trades, you have to be able to do everything. And I think balancing my journalism specialist with my studio minor really allowed me to do just that. Going from school to the workforce, I think, is jarring for everyone. I was lucky enough that my program offered a co-op option, so I did get to do, you know, a couple months during the summer at a fashion magazine, actually, Flair magazine. I had a lot of fashion background, a lot of art background, so I really thought that fashion entertainment journalism was going to be my future. But it took going and interning at that magazine to realize it's great, it's wonderful, but it's not what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I think that's a really valuable experience that I took when I started applying for jobs, you know, post-graduation. I know I started applying for more hard news options and funnily enough fell into a radio position, which again is something I never thought I was going to do. I focused all my studies on the photography, on the video. I really thought broadcast was my future. But you know, serendipitously, I was able to get a position, a part-time position at 680 News, and that kind of grew from part-time to full-time, and I spent my first 2 years there. I think that just goes to show that when you are entering the workforce, you really need to be open-minded about the opportunities that are presented to you, and really accept the fact that, you know, that linear path that you thought you were going to take might not be the best for you in the moment, and that you need to keep your options open, and that those, you know, those new opportunities you never once considered in the past might bring you to a better future. I think during all my time at UTSC, Jeffrey Dvorkin was absolutely an inspiration for us. He was so knowledgeable, he knew so much about the field, you know, he had such a decorated career and past, and he brought so much of that knowledge into the classroom. But at the same time, he wasn't afraid to admit when he didn't know something. New media is a new thing for a lot of us, especially in the field of journalism. And Jeffrey was always excited to teach us new things, to explore new things himself, and encourage us to accept that when we didn't know something, it didn't mean that we should give up or shy away from it, but that we should run head on into the problem and really explore it for ourselves. I also was a part of The Underground, which is a magazine here at UTSC, and that was a super exciting experience for me as well. I got up to assistant photo editor, which was awesome, and also, of course, tied in my studio background, which was really nice. And it was such an inspiring group of individuals. I think it was really nice being a small, intimate team that we really got to see the background and the behind the scenes of how a magazine actually gets to print. A lot of the times, you know, on the outside or even in the field, you know, when you're actually working in the career, you don't really get to see every single role. You don't get to experience that. But at The Underground, they really give you the opportunity to see how everything works, to be part of that voting process, decide the cover, you know, the features, what is the focus of the magazine that month. And I think that's a really unique experience that definitely stayed with me. To just keep your options open, keep your mind open. You know, I know you came in here with a really strict idea of how the next 4 years were going to go, how the next 10 years were going to go. But life is a mysterious thing. It works in crazy ways, and you need to be able to be flexible, to keep your options open, to, you know, not ignore things just because they weren't exactly what you thought they should be or what you thought they needed to be to succeed. And that success looks really different, and it can look really different, and that's not a bad thing, that's an exciting thing. I think another piece of advice that I'd have to give my younger self is that the workforce is not what you expect, you know? Journalism, I think it looks like a lot of glitz, a lot of glamour, but radio was hard. My first experience in it was working the overnight shifts. I was working evenings, I was working weekends. I couldn't see my friends, you know? But that's kind of how life goes, right? You start at the bottom, you kind of work your way up, and that isn't to say the job was awful. I loved my coworkers. I loved how much they trusted me to kind of, you know, go on air and deliver the news and talk about what matters to me and chase those stories. I learned so much on the job. I was not only an anchor, I was my own writer, I was my own producer, I was my own editor, I was answering phone calls, I was doing interviews, I was talking to police. All experiences that you wouldn't get at school and you wouldn't get at a lot of other jobs unless you start at the bottom, unless you're willing to say yes. And I think that's something that I carried with me, you know, when I went over to Omni and now at CP24 starting this new job. I know that it's going to be a situation where I am starting at the bottom and that I have to keep my mind open. And that's a skill that I don't think I would have had unless I started, you know, at UTSC, taking studio, taking a chance on an art course when I'm not much of an artist.